Every game is filled with characters you like and characters you dislike. I've never been a fan of the Black Mage in Final Fantasy XIV, but I've always had an appreciation for it. But now, after playing the game for almost 7 years, I've finally stopped admiring from afar. Today, I'm going to give my impressions of the level 80 Black Mage. Let's get started. First things first, I think it's going to become abundantly clear after watching this video that I am not very good at the Black Mage, and there are a number of reasons for that. The first reason is that I don't typically engage with casters, and that's not just in Final Fantasy XIV, but that's in MMOs in general. I gravitate towards tanks and melee damage dealers. So stepping into the Black Mage, the truest form of a caster, was very difficult for me. The Black Mage's strongest spells take almost 3 seconds to cast, and sometimes finding an opportunity to stand still for that long in Final Fantasy XIV is very difficult. Across the entirety of the game, enemies are designed to poke and prod you and push you outside of your comfort zone, and for the Black Mage, that means moving while you're in the middle of a cast, and you have to weigh the pros and cons of standing in a spot and getting hit in the face with a massive damage attack from the enemy, or moving out of the way and interrupting your cast. But with that said, there are a lot of tools in the Black Mage's kit that help alleviate that, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Before we go any farther, I want to talk about the most basic level of the Black Mage's design. It's based around two different elemental stances, Astral Fire and Umbral Ice. When you're in Astral Fire, your fire spells deal more damage, but your MP doesn't regenerate. When you're in Umbral Ice, your MP regenerates incredibly fast, but there's no damage bonus. So your goal is to alternate between the two stances while optimizing your time spent in Astral Fire. One more thing that gets layered on top of your Astral Fire and Umbral Ice is the ability Enochian. Unlocked at level 56, this increases your damage dealt and allows the casting of Blizzard 4, Fire 4, Despair, and Umbral Soul, and its additional effect grants Polyglot if Enochian is maintained for 30 seconds. Enochian is maintained as long as you have Astral Fire or Umbral Ice active. Your Polyglot can be spent on Foul or Xenoglossy for area damage or single target damage respectively. The core concepts of the Black Mage, as well as its rotation, aren't any more or less complicated than what you find in other jobs in the game, but again, trying to maintain this job's rotation while in combat felt like a massive uphill battle, but it was one that felt incredibly rewarding. My favorite two abilities that added to this sensation of reward were Ethereal Manipulation, which is learned at level 50, and Between the Lines, which is learned at level 62. Ethereal Manipulation allows you to slide from your current position to a nearby ally, and Between the Lines allows you to slide from your current position to Ley Lines, which is one of your buffs, which I'll talk about in a little bit. These two abilities allowed me to push the limits of how long I can stay in one place, and over the course of my leveling process, I pushed that limit too far and ended up dying. But the risky business is a lot of fun. I'll be casting a fireball and I see an area attack coming towards me, but I know that if I just get this cast off, then slam down on that Ethereal Manipulation button, I will rush to the side of my teammate and be safe, all while keeping up my damage output. With that in mind, now let's shift gears and talk about the Black Mage's buffs. They all feel incredibly impactful and their cooldowns are proportionate to what they do. One of my main criticisms of the Red Mage was that its buff cooldowns felt too long, but with the Black Mage they feel just right. That's not to say there's no place for 120 second or 180 second cooldowns, but they need to feel impactful. The majority of the Black Mage's cooldowns are 90 seconds or less, and if they were any longer than they are, it would significantly hurt my enjoyment of the job. If I had to pick my favorite ability buffs for the Black Mage, I would say it's Ley Lines and Triple Cast. Both of these abilities feel like they exist to rectify some of the weaknesses of the job, while also increasing its damage output in the process. Ley Lines creates an area on the ground that reduces your spell casting time and recast time by 15% for 30 seconds. This ability has a 90-second cooldown. It lets you set up shop, and while Ley Lines is active, the Black Mage feels incredibly quick, and it is a very satisfying sensation. With that said, Ley Lines is not a perfect ability. It creates a stationary area that you often have to move out of, but the developers were smart. They added an ability called Between the Lines that allows you to rush from your current position back to the Ley Lines that you created. And Between the Lines has a 3-second cooldown, so if enemies are constantly sending attacks at your Ley Lines, there's no need to stress. Move out of the way of the enemy attacks, then risky business your way back to your happy place where you can continue roasting enemies with giant fireballs. Triple Cast makes the next 3 spells have no casting time, and it has a 60-second cooldown. It's basically the amped up version of Swift Cast, and if there are moments when you have to move around a lot for an extended period of time, Triple Cast feels great. If you don't have to move around a lot, then you can just incorporate Triple Cast into your normal rotation. I'm not going to talk about every buff and ability that the Black Mage has, but just know that every button that I press feels really good to do so, and this is something that I hope can translate to some of the other jobs that don't have impactful feeling buttons. The last and most important thing to note about my experience with the Black Mage is that it feels good to be powerful. There are obviously concerns about being too powerful or overpowered, but I don't think the Black Mage falls into that category. Even though the Black Mage doesn't require a lot of actions per minute, it requires a very special set of skills that I think will be taken for granted if you don't engage with the job. With that said, the main thing that I take away from my experience with the Black Mage so far is that it feels amazing, and more jobs need to learn from how the Black Mage was designed. Short, impactful cooldowns, powerful spells and abilities, and unique actions like ley lines, between the lines, and ethereal manipulation that play into the identity and playstyle of the job would be amazing across the board. And there we go, man. That's going to do it for my impressions of the Black Mage. It's a lot of fun, and my goodness, it was significantly more challenging than I expected. While I was leveling it up to 80, I died so many times in fates, in dungeons, in trials, extreme trials, normal raids at level 80. So much death, it was embarrassing. But it was also incredibly gratifying to learn and slowly but surely get better. I can 100% say that I am a very mediocre Black Mage, but I know that if I stick with the job for longer, I will get more accustomed to having extremely long casting times. Last thing before we close out completely, I want to give a shout out to all of my current patrons. Aljano, Alex, Alfred, Avi, Chris, Evipen, Gabriel, Glenn, Jason, Jay, Joseph, Caliph, Khalid, Kunaka, Miniflame, Olivia, Papa Nurse, Ronaldo, Rodney, Roland, Soul, Slen, The Macman, Tower Watch, and William. Thank you so much for your patronage. It is freaking amazing to receive this kind of support, and I appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. So, if you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support the channel more than you already do just by watching, subscribing, liking, and commenting, you can head over to patreon.com/iBluairJgR to become a patron. As always, the name of the game is Final Fantasy XIV, the name of the channel is iBluairJgR. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.